Hey everybody, happy Sunday. This is Dr. Ryan Berlin. You're listening to Align Your Health on 55 KRC.
We're getting feedback from that.
Sorry.
Talk for me for a minute.
Hello, 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 hello.
Yeah, we were getting feedback from
Did you shut that all the way down?
So it's okay. It's good now.
I just turned it all the way down.
She just turned it all the way down, like entirely.
We're just going to need to start again because it made you sound like you had an echo on you.
All right, so when I see the light come on, is that when I start recording?
Should we?
No, it was just the speaker was feeding back into your mic, so that gave you an echo sound. So
She just turned it all the way down, so I don't know that we'll hear the music. So do we just look for the red light, or?
you should hear the music through the speakers.
Oh,
so you should be good. Yeah.
We've done this once before.
Show 18.
That. Hey everybody, this is Dr. Ryan Berlin. You're listening to Align Your Health on 55 KRC, the talk station, and we just hope you're having a great Sunday morning, enjoying your weekend. And today we have an awesome topic. We're going to be talking about this upcoming season.
Yes, it's a wonderful season in front of us.
But I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, we go in this time of year, and we've talked just recently on the immune system and how we call this cold and flu season, or it's the holiday season or whatever. But really, there's one thing that this season has going for it that a lot of times I don't think we acknowledge, is that it's the season of indulgence.
Yes, this is sugar season.
Sugar season, that time from Halloween, we said, all the way through
Halloween through Valentine's
Valentine's
Day.
Day.
Really. Yeah,
So
if you think
October,
about it.
November, December, January, February. And really, we come out of that season, everybody is ready to get some sunlight, get their vitamin D going, and feel healthy again. And we're just here to talk about setting ourselves up for success through this time of the year, and then acknowledging also really what the major problem is, and with all that exposure, especially like you said, to sugar.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting if you look at some of the stats on. So we were talking about this earlier, and we were talking about how the overconsumption of sugar leads to a myriad of conditions really inside of our bodies. But most people would generally associate the overconsumption of sugar with diabetes, right? I mean, some people even call it the sugar.
I got the sugar.
Right. So even just last year, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention reported that more than 100 million U.S. adults are now living with diabetes or pre-diabetes. 100 million. That's astounding.
30 million of those actually have diabetes, and then the rest of 70 million are on their way to developing it, so they're considered pre-diabetic. Actually, 84 million. So that means that those people have an average healthcare cost over their lifetime of an additional $200,000+ than somebody who doesn't have diabetes. So this isn't just a problem from October to February. This is something that once you develop this, it actually is going to stick with you unless you reverse it for lifelong. A few weeks back, we told a story about Jackie, or that was the name we used anyway, a patient of mine who we were helping her through chiropractic care, and then obviously coaching her through nutrition and just helping her make some changes and move away from her medication. Her doctor was on board with it. Her medical doctor was excited that she was getting some coaching from somebody, and every time she came in, run her blood work, kept seeing things improve, and kept taking her off of medication. The coolest thing was she was able to come off of insulin for the first time in 20 years. And she was also taking metformin, which is a diabetic drug. She was able to come off that as well. And when we calculated the savings on the insulin, she was telling me that insulin was running her insurance company roughly $1,000 a month, so $12,000 a year. She'd been on for 20 years, so it's like $250,000 of healthcare costs.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So being able to turn that around, imagine how much her premium should come down if you know, like they'll go up for sure when you get on diabetic medication, because now, you know, you're a larger cost to an insurance company, but they should go down, and you should be rewarded for getting off those drugs too.
Imagine if you're a small or a mid-sized business and you're self-insured and you got all of your employees under chiropractic care and reduced all of those savings across the board. There's companies that are doing it.
Yeah, so that's actually one of my favorite things to do, is work with small companies, especially when they have between 5 to 20 employees, and work out plans with them where their employees are able to come in, get checked, and then we do quarterly talks within the company, and teaching them about nutrition and teaching them how to be exercising effectively, teaching them about their posture. And the average company we work with, it's awesome. I mean, the patients, the employees are losing on average 10 to 15 pounds each, literally hundreds of pounds across the board. And we're able to work with these companies. So before we really dive into today and start talking about sugar, I just want to invite you, if you're listening right now and you know you want to set yourself up for success this holiday season, if you're looking for help with the nutritional coaching, if you're looking for a doctor that's going to work with you, we're going to talk about the chiropractic portion like we always do a bit today. If you're have a company that you think your employer, or if you are the employer and you'd like to establish that kind of relationship, reach out to us and give us a call at 513-755-3583. Ashley is who coordinates all the speaking engagements we do, and all of the lunch and learns and all the corporate wellness stuff. So that's just always an awesome thing to be doing with companies in the area, and we absolutely enjoy that and love it.
Oh my
And
gosh,
we've worked with Hauser Air. We've worked with lots of churches in the area. We've worked with a lot of companies and done some awesome corporate wellness with them. So let's get into it. Let's talk about sugar a little bit. I know we've talked about this in multiple podcasts or multiple radio shows that we've done, talking about sugar and touching on it here and there. But today we're going to dive into it a little deeper. So sugar is referred to as the silent killer because overconsumption can lead to a myriad of diseases. You want to name off a couple of those?
Oh my gosh, so weight gain really hits you first and foremost. That's one of the most, the biggest things that come to mind when we talk about overconsumption of sugar. But it also hits into heart disease and diabetes, cancer, depression, and we go into low energy, fatty liver, skin and cellular aging. A lot of acne is contributed to overconsumption of sugar. And then there's just chronic conditions like kidney disease, gout, and there's even dental health impacts, cognitive decline. I mean, we could literally, the list goes on and on and on, and sugar is at the root. And that's why sugar pops into a lot of the discussion that we have here, when we do the show every week, because it is at the root of a lot of different things.
We took some notes on some of these, and I think some of these studies are pretty interesting. So all of these come from the National Institutes of Health. So you can search those on PubMed.org. But weight gain, for instance, the main type of sugar found in starchy foods, which is fructose, has actually been shown to increase your hunger and your desire for food, the more glucose and for more glucose in your system. So consuming foods with fructose actually increases your desire for more foods that contain sugar.
I know, and it's really, like, when you think about it, we talk about merry-go-rounds a lot. We talk about medical merry-go-rounds, but food is also a merry-go-round that you can jump on, and you can get on this cyclical thing that just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning, and you eat more, and then you want to grab one more, and then you grab another piece of cake and one more donut or whatever it is, and it's that glucose is just continually fueling that desire for more of it.
Here's another one, excessive fructose, same type of sugar that's found in starchy foods, right? You have a hormone called leptin, which regulates your hunger levels, tells you when to stop eating. Well, when you consume fructose, it actually causes resistance, meaning your body doesn't know when to stop eating. And as if we needed a study for this, now there's a new study that came out that told us that people who consume sugary drinks tend to weigh more than people who don't.
who who paid for that study?
You did with your tax dollars.
Yeah, how much did that study cost, and who paid for it, and why do we have to have that study? There's a lot of studies that we could just tell you what the end result would be, and I think we could all agree that we knew the answer to that one.
Yeah, but we get into heart disease. There's studies now from the National Institutes of Health saying that consuming sugar is actually leading to early atherosclerosis, and this is something we're actually seeing. If you go back to our heart disease radio show and podcast, which you can find those, the podcast, if you guys want to go back when we reference these shows, the reason I reference them is because we dove deep into some topics. And rather than just repeat ourselves, we want to steer you back towards those shows. But get on the iTunes app, get on the podcast app and search Align Your Health, or go to drryanlive.com and click on podcasts, and you can go back and listen to the previous episodes. But heart disease, one of the things we talked about was that children now, that we're seeing 100% of children 18 and under are showing signs of atherosclerosis before they're even 18. And we're seeing kids that are like under 10 years old are already showing signs of atherosclerosis. So cancer, we talked about that for 3 weeks and really beat that one up, about how Otto Warburg talked about with the Nobel Prize that the number one fuel source for a cancer cell is sugar. And that it's really hard for cancer to thrive in the body when there's not an excessive amount of sugar present, because that's literally what it's feeding off of. And we prove that with using PET scans, because PET scans are using what? Radioactive sugar to find the cancer cells, because the cancer cells actually will be like eating up all that sugar because they love it. And then we put you in front of an X-ray unit, light you up, and all that radioactive sugar lights up. And we can find exactly where the cancer is because it's what's consuming all that sugar.
I think it's interesting because when we mention depression, I think a lot of different people will talk about getting depressed, like depression over the holidays, right?
Seasonal affective disorder.
Seasonal affective disorder. Yes, I love it. I love what you're saying here. And the interesting thing is that there's a group of UCLA scientists that found their research was showing that blood sugar swings and neurotransmitter dysregulation and inflammation might be some of the reason behind depression, that really sugar was leading to depression. And so this is, listen, like I'm going to walk you through this linearly, right?
Yeah.
But what we're saying is that out of UCLA, what they might actually be showing is that we're walking into this season where we're over consuming sugar, where it's party after dessert, after holiday, after treat. My kids at school, like coming home from school with just bags and bags and bags of candy and treats.
I like where you're going with this.
And so to look at that and to know that there is this condition that's seasonal affective disorder, and that a lot of people struggle during the holidays with depression. And if you're somebody who suffers with that, then I think that I'd really challenge you to take a look at that research and really think about.
So do you really have seasonal affective disorder, or do you have a sugar affected delusion when it comes to this?
Exactly.
Really what you have is, so you're going into a season where we're consuming more sugar than ever, and there's less sunlight, there's less vitamin D. I get that. That does absolutely play a role. In fact, one of the things we're going to talk about before the show's over is how if you've been consuming too much sugar, you need to be increasing your vitamin D because of the effects that the sugar has on the immune system. But I like where you're going, that we're really going into a season of overconsumption of sugar, which is leading us to depressive type mood.
And if research can show that sugar can cause neurotransmitter dysregulation, that's a huge impact on your mental health. And that ties into, listen, if you're worried about your mental health and your doctor is telling you that there's no connection between your mental health and the food that you consume, here's some research right here out of UCLA that shows that that's not the case.
Well, if your doctor is telling you that, first of all, they're living in a cave, because that's not what all the research is saying. We have friends like Kelly Brogan, Mind of Your Own. She has her book shows all kinds of research on how important nutrition is when it comes to mood. And then we have who's the other one you love, Ann Voskamp. I think she talks a bit about that as well. So here's the thing we hear often is like, oh, I don't eat that much sugar, but I don't eat sugar. And they're thinking like table sugar, like not putting it in your coffee and not putting it on things. So I think one of the things that we really need to talk about is where is it, how much is too much, and really, how do we start taking account of this? So coming up with that, and you guys are listening to Align Your Health on 55 KRC, the talk station. That was a horrible accent.
You're listening.
That was in key. And yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I thought we were supposed to get better at this.
Can you hear her? I was like literally getting ready to like wrap it up, and then I totally had a brain fart and couldn't remember what I was trying to say.
You gotta like put some pep in your step.
What's that?
You gotta put some pep in your step. You can't.
I didn't know where you were going with that. I was like moving into this, and then you went back to depression. I was like, all right, guess we're going back to depression. Ooh, this one's good. So I think most people know this, right? Like, here's chocolate bars, etc. But then you go over here, like, ooh, banana, muffin, pineapples, Wheaties, right?
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't name every single one of them, but yeah. Like,
No, I think we should name every single one.
Oh, so here are the maximum amount of sugars.
That's why I said that. Yeah, they're there. I like this. I think we focus on that. These couple slides for this next segment, and then we can go into the 5 essentials. Okay, so we know it's a problem. So how do we do this? We got to start balancing it with foods, right? Like balancing any sugar intake with other foods. It's right here.
Yeah.
Why do you keep looking at me like I have a third eyeball? And then controlling cravings, steps to controlling cravings, and then we can get into some of the supplementation and talk about this. I don't think we need to even get into the back, 15, 20 pages of this. Right. I don't think it's necessary.
Right.
Plus this is the talk coming up, isn't it?
Yep.
So let's
we don't have a date.
let's give them some highlights. I don't think we have to do the whole talk.
Okay.
You need to get some pep in your step. I haven't had enough sugar today. That was a joke.
Do you have peppermint?
No, it was the Melissa that got me.
Uh-huh.
Maybe I'll put some. Watch. Here we go. You ready? So I have to smell the Melissa.
Oh, that's fine. That's good.
Actually, I love that. I don't know why I don't do that more often. Feels so good. That'll wake you up.
I'm here to give the phone number on the website.
You give the phone number on the website.
Okay.
What do you want to?
Whenever you are.
No, we're ready when you are.
All right, we're going now.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Ryan Berlin. You're listening to Align Your Health on 55 KRC, the talk station. And we're talking about sugar. We just kind of broke down, why it's such a problem, went through some of the studies, just talking about some of the fallout of it, like when you're consuming too much of it, what happens to organs, heart disease. We just talked about cancer and some depression. But, I think one of the big questions, or I think one of the big things is most people, I think we become kind of like, what's the word? Like desensitized to how much of it we're eating, and we become unaware. And I think that we're to a point where we don't even realize how it's been added to every. So like we're gonna go over that in a second, talking about added sugar, but I just think we're so unaware of how much we should be consuming. So let's talk about this. How much is too much? So men, how much are they supposed to be consuming?
9 teaspoons.
which is
37.5 grams.
So that's our goal, is to be consuming under 9 teaspoons or 37 grams a day.
Right. And for women, that's 6 teaspoons or 25 grams.
Oh, so we get to eat more than you guys.
You do get to have slightly more
Do you know why that is?
teaspoons. No, I don't.
We metabolize it faster typically, because men have, not all men, but we tend to have on average about 20-30% more body or muscle mass, so we get to consume a little bit more sugar because we metabolize it. And it gets stored as some of it gets stored as glycogen in our muscles, and because we have a little bit more muscle mass, again, I'm not all of us. Like, some guys have some puny muscles out there, and some ladies have big ones, but just,
Generally
on average,
speaking,
generally speaking. Yeah.
Right.
So what does that mean? That means 150 calories. So 150 of your daily caloric intake is all that should be sugar, and no more than that for men, and about 100 calories a day for women. So if you're on like a 2,000 or 2,500 calorie a day diet, this is a very small portion of your entire nutritional daily intake.
No, for some people, you might already be honed in, and you might say, "Oh wow, like I know exactly what 9 teaspoons or 37.5 grams or 25 grams for women or 6 teaspoons of sugar looks like." But I think for most people, that's really sounds like, okay, well, put that into context for me. I have no idea what that means.
All right, so let's put this into context. You're drinking a 12-ounce can of Coke every day. Just one a day. I have one at lunch, and I hear that a lot. Like, I don't drink a lot of pop. I might have just one a day, at lunch or something. And that's that 12-ounce can of Coke contains 8 teaspoons from sugar. So for men, you are dangerously close to your 37 grams just in that Coke. You don't get any more foods that contain sugar. So no ketchup, no salad dressing, no, because most of those foods have some sugar in them.
Right.
For women, that puts you 2 teaspoons already over your max for the day.
Man.
So how about a Snickers bar? That's 5 grams in a Snickers bar. So
the interesting
that is 57 grams in a Snickers bar. 57 grams in a Snickers bar. So what that means is you're at 5.83 teaspoons of sugar just in that one Snickers bar.
Whew.
So I think a lot of people understand sweets, right? They may not understand how much. So a candy bar usually around 50 to 60 grams. Pop, we said, is right around, 8 tablespoons, which is putting you really close to like 70 grams or so.
And I think most people are really, like, when you think about, but I don't eat sugar. Like, when we have patients that'll come to us and they'll say, I don't eat sugar, right? They're talking about Snickers bars, candy, table sugar. They're talking about the very obvious, like, flags.
Sticking your tongue in the sugar bowl.
Right, sticking your tongue, like, dumping sugar on top of strawberries. I mean, I've heard people do that. But,
I used to dump sugar when I was a kid. I used to wait till my mom and dad left the kitchen and went and did something else in the morning. And they're listening to this, so they're going to love this. And I would wait till they would get out of the kitchen and go do something else before school. And I would very quickly run my cereal bowl over the counter, find the sugar bowl, open it up, and just start heaping teaspoons of sugar onto my cereal, so much so that I would mix it and most of it would settle down in the bottom of the bowl, and I would get like sugar flavored milk when I was done. But I remember doing that. I remember coming home from school and taking a spoon and grabbing a spoonful of peanut butter and then rolling it in the sugar bowl and eating that. And so I was addicted to sugar as a kid. So this comes from I'm a converted
reformed sugar addict.
Reformed sugar addict. And but I know that's not what most people are doing. Like, that was what I was doing when I was stupid and young and addicted to sugar. And I'll tell you, I was on the track to developing type 2 diabetes as a teenager. I passed out due to low blood sugar on 2 separate occasions. Once I was climbing a tree, and another time I was actually walking up the stairs. My dad and I were defrosting a freezer downstairs, and I got a little flush from the heat and started walking up the stairs and passed out backwards down the stairs. And that was, looking back, it's because I was probably dangerously close to, getting on an insulin pump when I was younger.
Yeah, and when we look at the stats that we talked about when we first opened up this show, there's 84 million Americans that have prediabetes, that are pre-diabetic. So we're talking to a lot of people today, that are in that same boat. And so you might not be eating candy bars, but maybe you're eating a yogurt, and maybe you think yogurt's healthy, but most yogurts contain 6 teaspoons of sugar, and that's 29 grams of sugar. So in a single serving container of it. So for a woman, that's past your daily allowance of sugar.
And I want another one. Our kids. So we do some yogurt, but we're very careful. So here's the thing. So I like yogurt. That's fine. There are ones with 16, 20 grams of sugar, 25 grams of sugar in them, all the way down to 2 or 3 grams of sugar.
Right.
So just when you're shopping, you have to be looking at the labels, and you have to be, number one, look for how many grams of sugar. Number two, look for the serving size, because it might be 6, 7, 8 grams of sugar, but what if the serving size is 2 servings? That's really 12 to 20 grams of sugar, or whatever it is. Cereal bars, that's another one we just don't do because they're usually chock full of sugar. I think everyone knows like sodas and drinks, but here's some surprising ones. You ready? How about the Breakfast of Champions, Wheaties, right? I'm not talking about putting sugar on it like I used to, but Wheaties contains 3.08 teaspoons of sugar.
That's crazy.
3 full teaspoons in a bowl, right?
Yeah. And
Banana Nut Crunch, 3.55. How about Honey Nut Cheerios, 6.67. That was a fan favorite of mine when I was a kid.
Yeah, and then I think you can expect Cocoa Pebbles to have a lot of sugar, right? Because it's a sugary drink, but you're looking at sugary cereal, but that's 7.26 teaspoons of sugar in a bowl of Cocoa Pebbles.
So one of the things that we do with our kids is if you're looking to, and we talked a little bit about this with last week's show, because we talked about kids' nutrition last week, and we talked about how with our kids, we don't do a lot of snack foods. We definitely don't do fruit roll-ups. We don't do any of that stuff just because of the amount of sugar that's in it. But we do keep some fruit on hand, especially berries. We keep a lot of apples around and certain things. And we give our kids kind of free reign of those. But there are some fruits you got to be careful of, like grapes. I know kids love grapes. Why do kids love grapes? Well, because out of all the fruits, they contain the most sugar. There's 3 teaspoons of sugar in a serving of grapes. Banana, about 2.5 teaspoons, versus you go down to like strawberries, 0.9, raspberries, 0.9. So why do we let our kids eat lots of berries and things like Granny Smith apples that are more tart, but we try to cut back on some of those higher, and it's not to say they never eat bananas. Like we have bananas around the house, but that's not something that they have like free reign, they can grab anytime they want. That's more certain snack times. If you're going to be eating fruit and you're an adult or you're a kid and you have your kid eating it, I would argue that earlier in the day is better because you're going to have the day to burn it off. But with kids, though, I wouldn't necessarily load them up on a bunch of stuff and then send them to school on sugar, because that's going to be counterproductive to...
Yeah, their teachers will thank you for not loading them up on sugar and then sending them off to school. Absolutely.
So let's talk about this concept of what is added sugar, right? Like added sugar. You hear that term a lot, added sugar. And so when you look at a food and you see there's X amount of grams of sugar, like if you picked up, let's say an apple had a nutritional label, right? Mm-hmm. There's sugars that are naturally in that apple.
Right.
But there's also a lot of fiber there.
Yep.
And so the fiber slows down the insulin release and the absorption of that, or the utilization of that sugar, spiking your blood sugar, etc. However, there are foods that they don't naturally contain sugar; they've been added to them. So you think of like bread. Bread by nature doesn't need to have a lot of sugar in it, but companies add it in to make it more addictive and more palatable.
Right.
Ketchup, for instance, ketchup doesn't really need to have a lot of sugar in it, but they add tons of sugar into it to make it more addictive. And they also know that going back to that study we talked about a few minutes ago, you eat a lot of fructose, you're more hungry, you're bound to eat more. When you're out to eat and you're out to restaurants, they love you eating ketchup because it contains a lot of fructose. They know you're going to be ordering more.
You're either going to be going back to the grocery store and buying lots more of that ketchup, or you're going to be ordering more food when you're sitting in a restaurant.
So if you're looking at a food label, you're looking at a food label, sugar's added to food, you look and you see, it's got 20-something grams of sugar. How do you know if it's added sugar? Well, you go down and you start looking at the list of ingredients, and what are some of the things you want to be looking out for?
Right, so added sugars could be beet sugar, brown sugar, buttered sugar, cane sugar. I feel like I'm about to
shrimp gumbo, shrimp.
Exactly. We're gonna go Forrest Gump style here, but there's a whole list, and you know what? We're gonna share this whole list of added sugars on our Facebook page. If you go on Facebook and you search for Dr. Ryan, Dr. Ryan Berlin, you will be able to find. We'll share some pictures that'll give you all this list of sugars. But date sugar, golden sugar, evaporated cane juice is another form of sugar. Even the organic raw sugar. This is one of my favorite things. When we have people that will, and I love this. I think this is sort of the gateway, and I think that we've struggled with this ourselves too, where we had to walk over this bridge. But just because it's organic sugar doesn't mean it's good sugar.
Yeah.
Right? Like organic cookies doesn't mean that they're good for you.
No.
Like they just, they might not have the
Yeah, people get
toxicity
sucked into
load.
that trap of like, oh yeah,
Yes.
we're starting to eat organic, and then I buy an organic Fruit Loops and
Right,
organic
right.
this and organic that. And
Right.
it's like it's still junk food. It's
Right,
just
right.
not as poisonous of junk food
Yeah,
because
not
it
as
doesn't have the
poisonous as junk food.
pesticides and stuff.
Exactly.
Syrup. So you want to be careful with syrup. So if
Yes.
syrups are on an ingredient like carob syrup, golden syrup, high fructose corn syrup, that's the big one. But even things like agave nectar, maple syrup, like even though those are healthier versions of sugar ingredients, they're things that you just don't want it. There's not a need for a lot of it added to your food.
Right.
There's a hierarchy. You want to stay away from the highly processed ones like high fructose corn syrup, and then you must and just sugar in general, and then the hierarchy then would move towards probably something like cane sugar, and then towards brown sugar, and then eventually towards something like maple syrup. Like
Maple syrup.
that would be a healthier sweetener, but it's
Right.
still an addition of sugar to that.
Yeah.
Molasses, but then some of the tricky ones are like crystalline fructose and dextrose and malt powder and ethyl maltol and fruit juice concentrate or galactose or glucose. People don't disaccharides, maltodextrin. People don't realize that these are added forms of sugar, and so you're just getting that consumption. Agave nectar, for instance, is about 70 to 90% fructose and 10 to 30% glucose. So it's literally only sugar. That's all it is.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about this is it feels almost like we're always trying to get tricked by what the latest name for sugar is, right? And you almost have to learn Latin. You almost have to learn a dead language to be able to decipher what sugar is as an ingredient. So that's the sad part.
So we'll tell you about some alternatives to use that are a little healthier so that you can stay away from not only sugar, but even worse, stay away from the artificial sweeteners too, because the research is showing those also spike glucose levels and insulin levels and set you up for even worse chances for diabetes, not less. So give us a call. We have Emily or Cindy standing by to answer calls. If anybody's interested in checking out our office and scheduling an appointment and establishing a relationship with an office that's really looking out for your health altogether, chiropractic care plus nutrition, it's such a great combination. Give us a call at 513-755-3583. You're listening to Align Your Health on 55 KRC, the talk station. That was better.
Oh, lovely close. Can I go the rest of your really
Yeah. Do, 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 do.
That's good when you have those personal stories of when you're a kid. Those are so relatable to everybody. Those are things that'll click in people's mind.
Yeah. It was true. I was like the worst. Literally, I looked back when I was a kid. And Ashley will tell you, we got together the other day for dinner with a family, and they'll have like cake or something, and I have no desire for dessert whatsoever. It's not to say I don't like I prefer my sugar in the form of like a beer or a glass of wine.
Did you go cold turkey, or you just don't like it anymore?
I think I would have ended up literally like diabetic, and I think at some point I just like it was just too much for me. So I kind of went. I didn't purposefully go cold turkey, but I started cleaning up my nutrition, and didn't have a lot for a while, and then now when I go back to it, it's just like it's too much.
Like super sweet if you taste something.
And if I do have sweets, like I prefer some of the stuff that's like dialed down. There's a group, we should even mention them, Paleo Primal Sweets, and it's all like organic, non-GMO, they follow what like paleo, so they use like, honey or whatever to sweeten it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't realize like how, like that stuff tastes really sweet to me, but you'll get someone who's really addicted to sugar and they'll eat it and they're like, this donut sucks. Or
It
this
tastes terrible.
Yeah, and it's weird because
Where'd you get these things at? Just let me know when you're ready.
we are ready.
Let's look at you.
Hey everybody, this is Reformed Sugar Addict, Dr. Ryan Berlin, coming at you on Align Your Health on 55 KRC, the talk station. We're just sharing some stories and just kind of chuckling about, I know that this topic sometimes gets overwhelming when we start talking about sugar and how much is, like everyone knows, they know it's added to everything, but when it's added to everything, it's like, well then what the heck do you eat? Because it's in everything.
Right.
And so we're going to try to simplify this for you. And I mean, the reality is when you guys don't know what to do, then do what you know to do. Like, when you don't know what to do and you're like, well, I don't know what to do because I'm kind of paralyzed by how much sugar is and everything, then just go do what you know to do, which is like vegetables don't have lots of sugar.
Right.
Your clean animal meats don't have lots of sugar. Eating good fats and having like avocados don't contain tons of sugar. So like start eating the things that you know to eat and largely try to avoid. The average person during the holiday season, the average person gains 5 to 10 pounds during the holiday season, and then after the holiday season, only is successful at losing 50% of it.
Oh no. The cumulative effect of that is not good.
So say on the low end, 2.5 pounds a year.
Yep.
10 years later, that's 22 pounds. 20 years later, it's 44 pounds. That doesn't sound that unrealistic when you think about it. Age 30, right? Age 40, you're 22 pounds heavier.
Yep.
Age 50, you're 44 pounds heavier. I mean, that happens very frequently to people.
Yep.
And that's just from consumption during the holidays, which is where a lot of the sugar intake comes from, right? I mean, we called it the sugar addiction, season, not necessarily the cold and flu season or the season of seasonal affective disorder, but it's really a sugar problem.
Yeah, and how problematic is it that as soon as the weather starts getting cold, we go right to sugar loading at Halloween?
Yeah.
I mean, that...
It's kind of weird, isn't it? It's
yeah,
we should almost do it the other way. It would be like summer's coming and our immune systems are going to be thriving a little better. We can get away with a little more, but we do the exact opposite.
Right.
And then we look at... And then it's like, like everyone's pushing to get a flu shot.
Right. Right.
Like when that's not the problem. It's not that I have a lack of the flu virus and a bunch of other chemicals in my bloodstream. It's like I'm off the rails during these 4 months, and the sun's not out, and the weather's colder, and like all this whole system.
I'm not getting the vitamin D naturally that I usually get. It's almost like we're saying things are about to get bad. Let's just make it horrible. Let's do what we can.
Let's lean into the curve.
Let's lean into it and let's just make it horrible with all the junk food. So I like what you're saying with balancing the sugar with food. I think that God had a perfect plan when He wrapped a lot of the natural sugars with a lot of fiber and a lot of like He packaged things perfectly, and just acknowledging that there's vegetables, there's fats, there's different fruits that you can eat that are packaged really well.
Yeah, your greens or your veggies are never going to be a problem. I mean, and the thing is, the more of those you're eating, the more it's going to offset the ill effects of when you do eat some sugar. So if say you're going to the holidays, I think one of the big plans is plan it out. Decide how much before you get to the party. Decide how much sugar you're going to have. Decide. You're gonna have one slice of cake, or are you gonna go back for the third or fourth one? Are you gonna just have a plan going into it and create some accountability? We talk about this.
We talk about accountability a lot, and we also talk about I've had the last meal syndrome before, where
every meal is like the Last Supper.
Yeah, it's like the Last Supper, and it's like this is the last time I'm ever going to get to eat
all the apostles are sitting there.
Yeah, exactly. Or this is the last time that I'm going to get to have dessert, or this is the last.
So that's the female conundrum, is that you guys are always dieting, and because you're always dieting, every meal feels like, well, just this one, and
just
then
this time
tomorrow I'm gonna kick it into gear.
But tomorrow it's gonna be incredible.
So you start eating substantially worse at every single meal,
yes,
because your plan is that you're going to eat better at every next meal.
At every next meal, it's going to get better. And so I think the
guys don't do that as much. Like, if we're going to eat, like, most guys, and I can't speak on behalf of all guys, but, like, most guys are like, yeah, I shouldn't be eating this right now, but I'm gonna. And then I'm probably going to do that tomorrow. Or when they're, like, trying to get in shape, they're like, yeah, I'm just not going to eat any of that. Like, we don't have that back and forth that women have.
No, we definitely have that. But I'm going to be honest, like, I think I love what you're saying where you don't have to think about every meal as the last meal or your last opportunity dessert or your last, like whatever that is, the last holiday party that you're going to be at. I think really like having a game plan going into it and knowing this week, here's what my week looks like. And I know on Friday night we're going to this holiday party and on Saturday we're doing this event and, whatever it is and just choosing your battles. And you know what the crazy thing about that is that going into those things, like there's been a number of times where I've thought about that beforehand and thought, tonight's the night where I'm going to splurge, I'm going to get dessert. And by the time I get there, things are going so well and I feel so awesome that I'm like, I don't even feel like eating that. Like, I'm not interested.
Well, that's because you probably were, so here's the thing, and this is an interesting thing, is that, all right, when you ate more sugar, the research says that it caused you to be more hungry. And less hormones that suppress hunger. Mm-hmm. And you particularly crave more sugar, more glucose or fructose. Well, the opposite is if you're eating really good fats, like there's some research that says like an avocado or a tablespoon or two of olive oil will actually decrease your cravings in sugar. So you're going into the meal and you're like, oh, I'm going to have dessert tonight, and then you eat pretty clean. It's actually suppressing a lot of those cravings. So then when it rolls around, you look at the dessert menu and you're like, like,
right.
Let's be honest, if something chocolate was on there, you'd probably go after it, but
maybe. But sometimes you can take it or leave it, and then the times when you take it, like, enjoy it and don't feel guilty about it.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Enjoy it, move on, and don't get caught up in that. I don't know. It's just such a trap, is what it is, and so here's some tips. These are good ones. We talked about having a plan, creating some accountability, talking to your spouse. Like, you and I do this a lot. We talk about things that probably a lot of people don't talk about going into it.
Right.
You're like, hey, we're going to go over here. Let's make sure, we're eating with so-and-so, and we know, and, like, you're not, if you're listening, there is no so-and-so. Yeah. So if you're, like, one of our friends or neighbors or something. But, like, we're going here, and we know that these kids are allowed to eat this, and our kids aren't, so what are we going to do? And we talk about it with the kids in the car. You and I do this type of stuff.
I remember we went to a pizza party where everybody's making pizza, and we brought some sprouted spelt flatbreads instead of using the pizza dough that we knew everybody was going to be using there. So, I mean, there's been
Which our kids loved, and
it was a great experience, and we had a ton of fun, and we still ate pizza with everybody, and so...
Or we're going to a restaurant, and it's like, hey, guys, kids, like, so-and-so, they might be ordering chicken tenders, or they might be ordering whatever, but we're going to get... a piece of grilled chicken and some veggies. Right. And if you guys do that well, then you can have popcorn at the movie later or whatever.
Right.
But just number one, having a plan and creating some accountability. Talk to your spouse, talk to whoever you're going to a party with, make a plan for it. So eating healthier foods helps curb some of those cravings. But how about this one? This sounds like advice my dad would give. You ready? Dad, I'm hungry. Go outside, go for a walk. Like, no, I didn't say I wanted to exercise. I said I was hungry. But there's some truth behind that. The National Institutes of Health, there's tons of studies. Healthline.com had an article on the 10 benefits of exercise, where they said exercise it releases the endorphins, and those are those feel-good chemicals, and they actually compete with the same part of your brain. You're still laughing. It's called
so funny.
It's called the satiety center, or it deals with satiety, the satiety centers in our brain. That the same area that's affected by those endorphins is also where hunger is controlled. We're Facebooking this at the same time. So if you guys are listening, you could also be watching if you want on Facebook. Just not if you're driving, but Ashley hasn't stopped laughing. So it's so true.
Funny when you think about a parent.
Because my dad used to say things like, and my dad's listening right now. So my dad used to say things like, you're not bored, you're boring, or stuff like that. But I could just see him saying things like, Dad, I'm hungry. Go out, go for a walk.
Go for a walk.
Like, no,
but it's true, it'll release those endorphins.
It's so true. So what else? All right, so avoiding the artificial sweeteners. So this may be, hopefully you guys are onto this, because this is, for the last 10 years, I think this has been getting, the press it deserves as far as how bad artificial sweeteners are. But let's just assume that you haven't heard that. And you're like, wait a minute, I was trying to avoid the sugar, and now you're telling me the artificial sweeteners. But those artificial sweeteners have been actually proven to trigger more cravings than sugar does. They can actually increase your blood sugar larger than even sugar does, because it's not necessarily dependent on the sugar being present in your system, but your body's reaction to the sensations that you have, that your brain thinks you're getting sugar because of the flavors, so it actually still releases the insulin the same way. And literally everything that sugar does, artificial sweeteners do it worse, and then they have their added toxicity, usually some form of a chemical that you wouldn't want to be consuming. For instance, sucralose, which is an artificial sweetener, is sucrose with an added chlorine molecule.
That doesn't sound good.
And chlorine's pretty toxic to us.
Right.
Aspartame. Aspartame was literally invented to be an insecticide. It just happened to taste sweet and was 0 calories. So now it's a artificial sweetener that will also kill bugs for you.
That will also kill, oh my gosh. So literally you have to heal once from the consumption of sugar and all the things that the sugar does to you. And then you're also going to have to heal from the toxicity that chemical is laying on your body. And that is the atrocious thing about artificial sweeteners.
And if you're really having a sugar craving and you're wanting to curb that, especially, the ladies tend to like chocolate. I like chocolate too, honestly. But dark chocolate, getting that 70% cocoa dark chocolate, having a little piece of that can really offset those cravings. And then the nice thing about it is actually a fairly healthy plant, because the polyphenols in dark chocolate are actually really, really good for you. There's a lot of good antioxidants in it as well.
That's awesome. So score 1 for the good guys with, being able to eat some dark chocolate if there's some sort of craving that you're having. That's 70% or more. That's awesome.
All right. Goals going into the holidays. So what are some things, holiday plans? Another one is bring your own dessert. I like that one. So make a dessert that is cleaner.
Or what we talked about on the break, and we were talking about, bringing this up during the thing, during our segment. We have friends who own a business, right? And it's Paleo Primal Sweets. I think they're up in Mason, and they make a great alternative dessert to anything that's heavily sugar laden. They make paleo desserts. They're sweetened with things like molasses and coconut sugar. And
yeah, so they still contain sugar, but at least they're much more natural forms, and
right.
typically sugars that don't spike your insulin release and quite as fast. Paleo Primal Sweets. Check them out on Facebook. I believe their website has a lot of pictures of their products. They're amazing. They have a chocolate chip cookie that is to die for, and they'll make a chocolate chip cookie cake they've done for our kids' birthdays. And they do an amazing donut if you're ever up near Cabu Coffee in Westchester. I know they do the donuts up there at Cabu Coffee. They're amazing. But those are just healthier options. Again, this isn't something you want to have for breakfast. You don't want to be necessarily having a donut for breakfast. But if you're going to the holidays, you're ordering some sweets, you're going to bring them somewhere. Our website's a really good resource too. Go to alignhealthcenter.com, and there is an entire section under patient resources that is an entire section that's all recipes. So start using our Max Living recipes.
Yep. And
they're amazing, and none of them have added sugar to them. They use sweeteners that are not artificial sweeteners, but they use things like stevia, some xylitol, which is a sugar alcohol, and your body doesn't break it down the same way as it does sugar, so it doesn't create that same insulin release. Other strategies, bring your own dessert. Don't go to an event really overly hungry. Eat something healthy before you go.
Right.
Bring your own dessert. Engaging in just what you're doing and engaging more what you're there for. You ever go to a party and you're completely bored? And what do you end up doing?
Eating.
Yeah, eating or drinking too much typically. So,
right.
So don't go to parties that are terrible. No, I'm just joking. Find more interesting friends. No, but engaging actually in what you're doing there. Get into a good conversation. Do something. These are just tips to keep you. How about the buffet line, like the dreaded buffet or the dreaded potluck?
Yes.
Or everyone brings something, and those usually there's an excessive amount of food, and usually there's an excessive amount of junk.
Right.
like junk food.
Right.
And so if you're going to go through like the potluck line, so to speak, then again, this is something going into it ahead of time and kind of making some rules for yourself. This sounds like child's play, but in reality, if you think about it, like allowing yourself one plate.
Right.
Or, like I'm going to make one trip through and I'm going to load my, and always start off, what I always do is load the plate up with all the good stuff. Try to get a lot of it on there. Stuff you like, you enjoy, but it's also healthy. Load the plate up and leave less room for the junk.
Right.
Like, people are always commenting on my plates when we go places. Like, when we go to, a wedding or go to somewhere like that. They're like, whoa. But that's because I purposefully load it up with the stuff that I want to be consuming. And I try to leave less room for other stuff. So I'll have like a huge salad, maybe the protein on there. And you know me, I love protein, so I might stack some extra of that on and then get some green beans or whatever. But by the time I'm done, there's not a lot of room for all the junk, and that's intentional. And it's become a habit, and now I don't really want it.
Right.
But it didn't start off that way.
No. It never starts off as like the habit that you're doing. It's always, you have to put the intention behind it.
Yeah, so when we return, we're going to talk a little bit more about what things to be looking out for, what to be consuming, but then we're going to talk about, all right, so we're going in this time of year, how do we set ourselves up for health? You're listening to Align Your Health on 55 KRC, the talk station. Phone number when we come back. So now let's go into some of the chiropractic role, vitamin D, cool. Like all right, so what do we do? Is that cool?
Yeah. What page are we on?
So here's what controls all healing and function.
Awesome.
Hypothalamus, so our satiety sensor and our centers in our brain, I can talk about that. But here, the limbic system, the area of the brain that maintains homeostasis, and the hypothalamus is perhaps the most important part. It's the brain of the brain. Without question, blah, blah, blah. Feedback. Hypothalamus controls homeostasis in the brain by way of feedback loops. So when people are stuck in these endocrine, neurological or endocrine, cycles they can't get out of, sometimes there may be interference in the nervous system. Maintaining metabolic balance, the hypothalamus receives millions of nerve messages from complex areas of the nervous system. So you can read through some of that as well.
Oh, you're fine.
Honestly, I say we just pretty much read through this page and we can take turns. If I leave off, then you jump in.
Okay.
I'm going to start on this one, and then I'll get through part of this page, and then we're going to jump into this one.
Cool.
I feel glorious, because I think that's huge. Like, okay, I get it, don't eat sugar, but I really struggle with this.
Well, the concept.
Yeah, well, that's because your brain is literally hardwired.
You need to go about 12 minutes on this one.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Just let me know when you're ready.
Ready. You said 13 minutes, right?
12. I want sugar.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Ryan Berlin, 55 KRC, the talk station. I want to give you our phone number because this next few minutes, this is where you're going to want to have that. It's 513-755-3583, and that's Align Health Center, Align Chiropractic. And again, I'm going to repeat that number just so you guys have this. It's 513-755-3583. And what Ashley and I are going to talk about next is we were just talking about how, okay, you get it, don't eat sugar. It's the holidays. I'm going to try not to overconsume. And I really have a plan for this year. And that's the thing. I think looking at the holidays as, wow, so all right, we didn't hit on this, but I'm going to touch on this for a second. If the average person's gaining 5 to 10 pounds during the holiday season, okay, and they only lose half of it, so meaning 5-pound weight gain, they end up losing 2.5 pounds of it. Just by simply going in the holiday season with a plan and not gaining weight, you're already 2.5 pounds ahead.
Yep.
Every year.
Yep.
Right? Better yet, if you could go into the holiday season and say, you know what, I'm going to do really well, and I'm going to focus my efforts, and I'm going to eat really clean, and I'm going to allow myself some dessert here and there, but I'm going to work out really hard this holiday season. I'm going to do this. If you could lose 2.5 pounds,
Oh my gosh.
now it's a 5-pound swing, and if you could do that annually, we talked about after 10 years, you're down 22 pounds.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
30 to 40, you're down 22 pounds. 40 to 50, you're down 44 pounds. Like, why not use the season to your benefit and say, I am going to have some of this, but I'm going to use this every year as a trigger for me mentally to, this is my season to buckle it, button down a little, buckle down. I was trying to say buckle down and button it up a little bit at the same time.
At the same time.
All right. So you have that plan set. You're going to avoid sugar throughout the holiday season. But here's the thing. And if this is your first time listening to us, you haven't heard this, but everyone else has, is that chiropractic care is all about your brain and your nervous system control everything. So your nervous system controls every organ in your body, okay? And you have this area called your hypothalamus that's literally responsible for not only all the processes of incoming information coming into the body, but controlling all your organs, all your cells to make sure that your body's maintaining health and homeostasis. That's out of the thalamic neuron theory, which is a medical hypothesis on how our nervous system actually works. So we have this area in our brain called the limbic area, okay? That's the area that maintains homeostasis. And a part of our brain called the hypothalamus is perhaps the most important part of that system. So here's the interesting thing is that not only does the hypothalamus control homeostasis, and meaning keeping your body in a state of balance, by way of these feedback loops that it's like constantly getting. Some of you guys have felt like you're in this at times where you can't break a cycle. You're caught in a feedback loop.
Yes.
So it's combining this neurological and endocrine responses, and this plays a prominent role in the regulation of especially our metabolism. That area of the body has nuclei that control how well we sleep, how our immune system functions, our cravings, and our hormones. And so when there's stress or damage on that area of our nervous system, how well do you think our immune system, our hormones, our cravings, and our sleep are all functioning?
Not well.
Right? What is the holiday season known for other than sugar? Stress.
Stress.
And when we're under stress, there's research that says that it puts additional stress onto our nervous system.
Yep.
So to achieve the task of maintaining metabolic balance, our hypothalamus must be in a state of being able to receive and exchange information as needed up and down our brainstem. Tell us a little bit about the hypothalamus.
Oh my gosh. So it receives millions of nerve messages, and they come from complex areas of the rest of the nervous system. And they're coming through there, and they're filtering out to all sorts of places.
So
right?
and that input allows the hypothalamus then to regulate things like we talked about: heart rate, blood pressure, respiratory rate, digestion, behavior, sex drive, body temperature, appetite, sleep cycles. So this is like all the stuff that gets jacked up in the holiday season, right?
Right.
Like all those things. So these nerve signals are going up and down the brainstem. And the effectiveness of this area to be able to control and regulate all those things, especially during a season where we're under a lot of stress, well, there's problems that can arise that we can actually develop. How many of you guys sit in front of a computer every single day with your head forward, kind of hunched over, and you know your posture's not good? In fact, you might be looking in the mirror and starting to see it change over the last 5 or 10 years.
Right.
Well, that's actually your spine starting to deteriorate and get into a position like your spine is actually starting to lose some of its healthy curvatures, and it's starting to kind of malform. And I always say that if people's spines, if they wore them on their face, everyone would take care of them, right? Like your teeth. Like nobody likes having a mess full of teeth in their mouth. Everyone wants healthy teeth, but those are just teeth. They don't do anything for your health. If we could see what our spines looked like, if we wore them on our face, then we would all take care of them. But most people don't understand that when there are problems with your spine, that problems with your spine actually disrupt the normal flow of nerve signals going up and down your spinal cord, and they literally problems in your spine, and you may not even know you feel these. Like you're married to me, you know what I'm talking about. You've seen messed up spines on X-ray of people who weren't having pain.
Oh yeah, that were asymptomatic. Yeah. that weren't having pain, or were asymptomatic in terms of they weren't actually feeling pain.
Yeah, neck pain, headaches, etc.
Right.
But what they don't know, those people that are even asymptomatic, or maybe they've had a car accident in the past but they never had their spine evaluated, they don't realize that those nerve signals are literally controlling not just their thyroid and not just their eyes, ears, nose, and throat, but those nerve signals are controlling their cravings. Those nerve signals are controlling their immune function. Those nerve signals are controlling their metabolism.
Yes. This is so good.
So they're everyday bad posture, sitting behind a computer. They've been in a car accident. Maybe they sit every day with a wallet under their left butt cheek, and they're developing these issues in their spine that they don't realize are starting to create stress and damage on the nerve system. But every one of those small injuries that's occurring in the spine is starting to create damage down those peripheral nerves that go out to organs, and then also damage the signals going back that are regulating all those other things we talked about, like cravings and satiety and hunger and hormones and metabolism. Here, get this, a study of 46 insulin-dependent patients. So these are diabetic patients who are on insulin. They had no indication of neurological pain. They're not in pain. They were compared with 46 age-matched control subjects. So you have control subjects, no insulin. You have people on insulin that are insulin dependent with diabetes. Spinal somatosensory evoked potentials were recorded from various segments of the spine, so they're measuring how well the nervous system is working. And the study revealed that patients with juvenile diabetes without clinical evidence of neuropathy have defects in the way that their nervous system is transmitting. So there's a reason why they develop diabetes. And what that means,
there's a reason why they develop diabetes.
There was stress already on their nervous system, and it is damaging the signals as they're going to their pancreas, as they're going back up into their brainstem. And they don't realize that their diabetes is related to spinal problems that they may not know about for 10 years from now. There was an oral glucose tolerance test performed on 200 subjects with spinal cord trauma. What they showed was that the study concluded that patients with the greatest levels of neurological damage had the worst risk of developing disorders with their metabolism. Whoa! I've been in 4 car accidents. What that means is if I wasn't under chiropractic care, all that spinal trauma puts me at a predisposed risk to developing increased risk of disorders with my metabolism. The study was called the effect of residual neurological deficit on oral glucose tolerance. There's another case study published in the Journal of Pediatric and Maternal Family Health that documented a case of a 4-year-old child who had results in stabilizing blood sugar through chiropractic care. How does that happen? Well, even in kids, they can have misalignments in their spine just like we can. Actually, most of our misalignments in our spine go all the way back to birth, even in adults. If 80% of children who are checked at birth have misalignments in their spine at birth, that means 80% or more of adults who've never been to a chiropractor have been walking around with misalignments in their spine for most of their life, and they don't realize that their allergies are as a result of their spinal subluxations. They don't realize that their ear infections when they were a kid, and now their tonsil infections and their asthma and their allergies, and then as an adult, their depression, their anxiety, their metabolism issues. We told the story about our own Dr. Jacqueline, who we love. She's one of the doctors in our office, but she actually got off of her own thyroid medication by getting her own spine corrected. And this is a chiropractor who understood chiropractic but didn't understand the power in her own body even healing until she got her own spine corrected and her thyroid started to heal. And guess what happened as a result of it? She ends up losing 25 pounds or more. Actually, I think she's up to like 35 pounds. She looks fantastic because...
As a result of getting healthy.
As a result of getting her nervous system healthy.
Nervous system healthy.
Yeah, she got healthy, but not until she got her nervous system healthy.
That's right.
So
there is somebody out there right now whose mind is absolutely being blown. Because most of us, and in fact, until I met you, I had never seen a connection between the metabolism and chiropractic care. And to think that, when we talk about how, our average patient loses between, 15 to 25 pounds when they get under chiropractic care, some people are thinking, is it because of all the other changes that you're introducing to them?
Yeah, so let me speak to that because we only have about a minute, really before we wrap up. Right. But let me speak to that that my average patient loses 10 to 15 pounds. My average patient that I send to a nutritionist, the nutritionist says, wow, your patient does better than most of my other patients. Like they didn't have as much of the cravings. They were able to stick to the plan better. I send my patients to a neurofeedback specialist, and the neurofeedback specialist says, your patients get better faster than any patients I've ever seen. I send my patients out for, like different modalities or different therapies, or have them working with someone who does, like, say, homeopathy if they're not feeling well. And they're like, your patients respond faster than anyone. Yeah, because their nervous systems are healthy, and their nervous systems regulate everything in their entire body. If you want to have a healthy body, you have to have a healthy nervous system.
Right.
And you can't have a healthy nervous system unless you're under really good chiropractic care. You just can't. It would be like saying you can't have healthy teeth without brushing them properly.
Right.
So give us a call. We'd love to take care of you, and we just look forward to serving you guys throughout the holidays and thereafter. We want to see everyone healthier after the holidays. So give us a call at 513-755-3583. Until next week, you guys, have a wonderful week, and we will be talking to you next week. You're listening to Align Your Health on 55 KRC, the talk station. I almost lost it, Tony.
You're a professional, man. You picked it right up here and there.
I looked at him, and I go, if you're sitting under that wallet under your left butt cheek, and he goes,
Hey, that's me.
that would be awesome if during the radio show every now and then you just hit the button. We're like, hey, wait, I'm right here. Like, I'm literally right here.
Oh my god.
I'm your poster child right here.
You know, we gotta get you. This could be more like Howard Stern, where he gets, his producer talking, and you could just be one of our guests, like one 15-minute segment every show.
Yep, that's me. Yeah. Everything you tell us not to do. Yep, that's me.
Oh Lord.
You're like looking up from your Snickers bar.
My 12 Cokes I'm drinking right now. My 3 bowls of cereal that I pounded with sugar. That has that coating at the bottom. It's all good.
Drink it down afterwards. Hey, you guys, thanks for watching. We're going to keep going live with the videos from our talk show. And we're going to create the video content as well. So if you missed the show audio, you can always come back video. That's Tony back there. He's our... Hey, Tony, wave to everyone. There you go. So that's Tony. When we're cracking jokes in between segments, that's who we're talking to. He's awesome. And we'll see you guys next week.